Hi guys, it's Annie. Welcome back to BloomTV. Today I am going to do my January 2015 reading wrap-up, and in January I read a total of 14 novels and one piece of short non-fiction, which is really great. It's a lot more than I was kind of expecting to read, considering I've been quite busy. I mean, it hasn't been a really busy month and I didn't have a lot of work. And I have also been ill for quite a lot of the month, so I've had that time to read. And I also ticked off 12 books from my 2015 Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, so I'll go through like that kind of list as I have reading them. But the first books I either don't have with me or they were on my Kindle, so I am just going to show you those ones quickly now, because I don't have them in physical form. And the first one is We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. As I always say, please correct me if I'm not saying people's names right down below in the comments. And this is the piece of non-fiction that I read this month. This was adapted from the TED talk that Adichie did, I think last year or the year before, about feminism, and it kind of deals with feminism in Nigeria as well as in like the kind of the Western world of America and like that area, and kind of the differences, the similarities, and Adichie's personal experiences, the experiences of her friends, and a kind of commentary. And this had so many quotes that I highlighted on my Kindle. It was amazing. I think it's the only book I gave, or piece I gave, 5 stars to this month, just because I loved it and I agreed with practically everything that she said. I think obviously it was a speech. It's not a full-length novel, it's not a collection of essays, it didn't have that depth or perhaps, go into every kind of thing that she might think on feminism, but I think for the kind of speech that it was a great primer, and I just really, really enjoyed it, and it just kind of discussed a lot about gender, and it was really excellent and really highly recommend to anyone. I would definitely say it would be compulsory reading, and I will be recommending it to all my friends and family. And I'm also hopefully going to be watching the talk that it's adapted from as well, because I'd really like to hear her speak on it. I think it'd be really interesting. And the next book was actually one I got from the library, but it's just a picture of it, and it is The Assassin's Curse by Cassandra Rose Clark. Last year that book got a lot of hype on BookTube because I think the publishing company went bust, so the book was kind of going to be unavailable after a short while. So a lot of people were talking about it, and I actually managed to get it from the library, and it is a young adult fantasy novel, kind of with a Middle Eastern setting. I really unfortunately gave this 2 stars or 2.5 stars. I wrote a kind of review about it. Most of these books I've written reviews on, so if you add me on GOODREADS you can see my reviews on there. I just didn't enjoy this. I really detested the writing style. Ooh, it was very like slang, and it just did not work for me, and I don't think it suited the character at all. I just thought it was a bit juvenile in a bad way, not the writing style, just in general. The redeeming thing for me, and the reason why I gave it 2 or 2.5 stars, was because of the Middle Eastern setting. I really enjoyed that. I think that's something we need to see more of in fantasy and young adult fantasy. So that was really great, but everything else just didn't work for me. And there's also a sequel. This book ends on a massive cliffhanger, and I'm just not interested at all in reading the sequel, even though there's a massive cliffhanger at the end of the book. What are you going to do? Some people really enjoyed it though, so I definitely still don't let my review kind of perturb you, because I think a lot of people really enjoyed this book. It just wasn't for me. And then the next book I read from the library is Shades of Milk and Honey by Mary Robinette Kowal. This is the first book in, I think it's the Glamourist History series, or the Glamourist series, and this is a series focused on 2 sisters, and it's basically Jane Austen with magic. That's basically what it is. It's very, very similar to Jane Austen. I might end up doing a full review of this at some point, but basically it's set in Regency England, and it's basically is Regency England, except it's mostly ladies who practice this type of magic called glamour, where they can kind of enhance their music and enhance art and enhance their surroundings around them and their appearances. Excuse me, I've got a cold. And it was so fabulous. I really enjoyed this. It isn't Jane Austen fan fiction, but it was written in the style of Jane Austen, and but it was very strange because it was very written in that Austen style, but then the dialogue was so un-Austen-like. Like, with Austen you come to expect really witty banter and dialogue between the characters, and this novel just lacked that for me, but apart from that I really enjoyed it. Also, there was a massive dramatic ending which was very un-Austen-like, but belonged to this novel, I think. And I ended up giving this 4 stars, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully buying the book and the rest of the series. And then the last book I don't have with me is one that, if you've been watching me or my channel for a long time, you'll know that me and my friend Alice over at Flourish and Blotted on Tumblr, my bestie, we exchange books every like month or two when we can, like our favourite books, and it's kind of like a swap thing that we do, and then we send the books back with another book, and it's just kind of a thing we've been doing for a bit. And the book that she sent me that I read this month was Alice Bliss by Laura Harrington. I haven't heard anything about this book before Alice sent it to me. It's about a young girl called Alice. She's 15 and she has a sister and a mother and a father, and her father gets redeployed to Iraq or Afghanistan, I believe. And it's about her coming to deal with that, and about the family relationships, how her father leaving affects their family and affects her relationships with other people. It's really great. I really enjoyed it. I really liked Alice's characters. The writing style was very beautiful. I was just kind of not motivated to read it. Didn't really feel very motivated to read that week, and I'm not sure if that was because of this novel, but because of that I did give it 4 stars. But it's really enjoyable, and I think more people need to read it, because if you like novels about family relationships and just relationships between people in general, I think you'll really enjoy this, and the writing is really lovely as well. I believe it was adapted from a musical at some point, or had a musical made from the novel. I'm not quite sure, but from reading the back that's what it seemed like. But anyway, now let's go on to the physical books that I read this month. And the first one I read was actually one I finished this month, but I started in December, and it was Meant to Be by Lauren Morrill. This is a YA contemporary book about a girl. What is the main character's name? Julia. Sorry, I've read this so long ago that I forgot her real name. Julia is going on a class trip to London. She's from America, and Julia is very organised and very she likes to be in control, and she is just a really organised person, and I don't think she's a control freak, but she definitely likes to know what's going on if she has control of the situation, and I could kind of relate to that. And I did quite like Julia as a character, although there were definitely differences between me and her. And she has been lusting after this guy for ages, and she hates people who are like class clowns or just mess about. And then she starts developing a friendship with their class clown, Jason, that's his name, whilst they're on this trip to London. And she just comes out of her shell a bit and really learns to take chances and take a step out of her comfort zone, and it's really nice to see Julia's development. I got this from Book Outlet, and I probably wouldn't have bought it if it hadn't have been cheap on Book Outlet, but I've actually ended up really enjoying this. I love the cover. I'll just show you quickly what it looks like under the dust jacket. It's this gorgeous pastel scheme, and I just thought that was so pretty. I had to show you guys, and I ended up giving this 3 or 3.5 stars just because it was so enjoyable, and I don't think that ticked anything off on my list. And then the next book I read was Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas. This has been a long time coming. This actually came out in September last year. It's the 3rd book in a series. I have done a non-spoiler review of it, so I'll just link that down below, or you can go and check it out. It was the last video I posted. So I won't really go into much detail other than I gave it between a 4 and a 4.5 stars, and I absolutely loved it. And if you have been putting off reading this because you didn't really love the first 2 books, read this. It's fabulous. I really enjoyed it, and if you haven't picked up the series yet, I would highly recommend that you do. Again, I'm not sure if that checked off a list. Oh yeah, that was a book with more than 500 pages off my little list. And then the next book I read was a non-fiction book, and it is Popular, a Memoir by Maya van Wagenen. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I have actually also done a review for this. I gave it 4 stars, and that review will be up sometime. It's not up yet, but it will definitely be up in the future, so keep your eyes on the lookout for that, and yeah, just look out for my thoughts coming soon on this. Again, not going to go into too much detail because I've done a review, otherwise this video will be ending up being like half an hour long, and this was a non-fiction book, I think. Where is it? Yeah, a non-fiction book that I ticked off my list for that one. And then the next book I read, it was This Shattered World by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This was such a good book. As I said in my January haul, which might or might not be uploaded yet, this is a sci-fi book about two characters called Jubilee Chase and Flynn Cormac, and it's set on this planet called Avon, and this is the second book in the Starbound companion trilogy, and the first book follows Lilac and Tava, and I'm not going to really give you a plot synopsis because you can just go check out my thoughts on the first book, because this does take place after the events of the first one, but it follows different characters, and you do see an appearance from Lilac and Tava in this book, and it's so great. And I gave this 4 stars, and it was really enjoyable, and that ticked off a book set in the future. And then the next book I read was something that I knew I would really enjoy, and it is Etiquette and Espionage by Gail Carriger. This is the first book in her finishing school series, which is a YA series about a young girl called Sophronia who is 14, and she is sent to this finishing school which she's not quite sure about. She doesn't really want to go, and it ends up being a finishing school where they learn espionage and intelligencing skills and how to become an assassin or a spy, and this is set in the same world as the Parasol Protectorate. It's so great. I'd really highly recommend it. I did give it 4 stars. I didn't love it quite as much as Parasol Protectorate, but I did read the second book in the series, which I'll talk about later, and I'm just really enjoying this series, and it's really great. And if you haven't checked out anything by Gail Carriger yet, then do. And once I've finished all of her published work, at the moment I will be actually filming an author spotlight review on Gail Carriger because she's one of my favourite authors and she's fabulous. And then the book I read after that is Something Strange and Deadly by Susan Dennard. This is the first in a trilogy. I've also done a written review on this, so you can go check that out. And this is about a girl called Eleanor, who is, her father died a couple of years ago, and her brother is now gone missing. And there are these things called zombies. It takes place in alternative Victorian 19th century Philadelphia, and it's kind of supposed to be steampunk. It isn't. I've written a small review on this of GOODREADS. I had really mixed feelings about this book. I think I gave it 3 or 3.5 stars. I went into it in my review, but my main problems with it was the misbranding of it being like Clockwork Angel. It's not like Clockwork Angel at all. And my main arc was how the characters, this is supposed to be alternate 19th century Philadelphia, and the characters like say yeah and like in the why it just, and it completely, you read and these characters say something like that which belongs in 21st century like language set, and they'll go say something like that, and you're like, you're supposed to be in 2 centuries earlier, why are you speaking like that? Just inconsistencies, and it just irked me a bit. But I do go more into my thoughts on this review, and in my review I did actually quite enjoy reading this, although I don't really like books about zombies, but it was enjoyable. And I think especially because I read it after a Gail Carriger book, I think I saw that contrast more. And then the book I read after that was something I really enjoyed, and it was This Song Will Save Your Life by Layla Sales. I got this for Christmas, and it's about a girl called Elise, and she is 15 or 16, and at the very beginning of the book she kind of tries to harm herself and cuts herself, so there is trigger warning for self-harm right at the beginning of the book and kind of throughout, but it only happens once, and it's mostly at the beginning. And basically they find out, and she's really upset and very isolated, and she discovers DJing and this underground night scene, And kind of it's just her becoming herself, and it's kind of coming of age story, and it's really great. I really enjoyed this. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but it was so great. The music element was fabulous. Again, I wrote a kind of short and snappy review on this. I gave it 4 stars. I really loved it, and I really am looking forward to reading more of Layla Sales's work. And then the book I read after that, it was Ink by Amanda Sun. Again, I've done a review for this. This is just about a girl called Katie whose mum dies, and Katie is sent to Japan to live with her aunt, and then she meets this guy called Tomohiro whose drawings come to life. And that is mainly the plot synopsis. I had mixed feelings towards this one, and I gave it 3 or 3.5 stars on Goodreads. I have done a review, so you can see that on my Goodreads page. One really good thing that I loved about this book was how Amanda Sun wrote the setting of Japan. It was so beautifully written. Really like a character in the story in itself, and kind of just like in a Stephanie Perkins novel. That was something I really loved about this. Also, the cover is glorious, and I will be continuing on the rest of the series, despite my problems with it, because it has such a great concept, and I really love reading books set in Japan, so highly recommend that. And I just realised I am behind on my little telling you which challenges I've ticked off, so I'll just tell you all of those at the end. And then the book I read after that was the second book in the Finishing School series, Curtsies and Conspiracies, again by Gail Carragher. I'm not going to go into the plot synopsis for this, but I really enjoyed this one a little bit more, I think, than the first one, just because Sophronia's grown up a bit, and I gave this 4 stars. And I'm really looking forward to reading the third book, what's it called? Waistcoats and Weaponry, and I'm really looking forward to carrying on with the rest of the series. The penultimate book I read this month is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, with this really awful cover but lovely spine. This is published by Vintage. There is a newer edition of this which is much nicer than mine, but mine was second hand. This is required reading for me. I'm actually just writing a piece on this for my English Lit coursework at A2 level, and it was required reading, but I was going to read this anyway at some point, because it's one of those books which I feel is really important to read, especially as a woman, or anybody interested in literature. And this is written in the 80s, and it's a dystopian novel about a woman called Offred who is a handmaid, and in this society, handmaids are basically there to breed. They are used for breeding, that's their purpose. They live with families, they're kind of shuttled around to different high-class families to breed. That's their purpose, and in this world, women all have a purpose, they're all assigned a purpose, they're all the property of men. It goes into the role of women a lot, and it's really important, I think, because of that. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and it also discusses religion a lot, which I wasn't expecting, and it was really great. So I don't read a lot of books that deal with religion. I think I should read more of them, and this was really great. I did give it 4 stars only because sometimes the writing in this is absolutely beautiful, and at other times it is so just pointless metaphors, and some parts I just thought that doesn't need to be there, and it just kind of is a bit jolty between these really beautifully written passages and then these other slightly passages which don't just quite fit together. But this is still a really great novel, and I really recommend it to anyone, and I'm so glad I've read it now, and I'm really looking forward to writing about it. And then the last book I read this month was a bit of a disappointment, and it is Rock in a Hard Place by Angie Stanton. This is about a girl called Libby whose mother and sister died in a car accident, and her dad has gone missing. He's just left her with her kind of abusive aunt, and she meets this guy called Peter who is in a kind of, well, he's supposed to be in a rock band, but really it sounds more like a boy band to me. It's a YA contemporary romance novel. I wouldn't recommend it. I really actually hated it, so I feel like I can't give an objective review on this. I gave it 1 star on Goodreads, and I feel slightly ashamed about it. Have to admit, it was my own fault. I picked it up for shallow reasons, because this cover, actually not shallow reasons, I just picked it up on Book Depository because I thought the cover was nice. I also bought the second novel in this series for unknown reasons. I might read it, I might not. I might get rid of the books to begin with. And those are all the books I read in January. This has turned into a really long video, but I did read 15 books this month, and I'm just going to quickly tell you the 12 challenges that I've completed from this 50 book kind of reading challenge. I talked about this in my 2015 reading goals, and I kind of want to be done with this by June, because that's when I have a lot of things going on after June. That's when my exams finish. And I want to finish this by June, just because I'll be going to university hopefully in September, so I kind of want to be done with this challenge, but it's really great. It's getting me to read more outside my comfort zone, which is great. So I'll just quickly tell you what challenges I've completed, and those are a book with more than 500 pages, Air of Fire, a book set in a different country, that's Ink by Amanda Sun, a non-fiction book, that was Popular by Maya van Wagenen, a book from an author you love but you haven't read yet, that was Etiquette and Espionage by Gail Carriger, a book a friend recommended, that was Alice Bliss, recommended to me by Alice, and that book was by Laura Harrington. The next one is a book based entirely on its cover, that was the aforementioned Rock and a Hard Place by Angie Stanton. A book you were supposed to read in school but didn't, that was Handmaid's Tale. I was supposed to read it about 4 or 5 months ago, over the summer, and I didn't because my course changed. A book you can finish in a day, that was Curtsies and Conspiracies by Gail Carriger, which I managed to finish in a day somehow. A book with bad reviews, I believe that was Something Strange and Deadly by Susan Dennard. A book set in the future, that was This Shattered World by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. A book set in high school, that was This Song Will Save Your Life by Layla Sales, most of which is set in high school, and the protagonist is in high school herself. And the last one is a book with magic, and I can't even remember what book that was. Oh, that was The Assassin's Curse by Cassandra Rose Clark, or The Shades of Milk and Honey, can't quite remember. But yeah, those are all the books I read this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what books you read in January, if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, and I'll see you soon for another video. Bye!